Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of your original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
I quit. It's 105 degrees outside.
Can't quit.
I just quit Arizona. The whole state. I'm done with it. We're 3 deep already.
We're 3 deep.
Mm-hmm. This episode, I'm gonna be honest up front, a little dry.
It was rough.
Yeah.
It was a rough one.
Mm-hmm. It was. So.
Happy 4th.
Oh, yeah. I hope everybody had a safe and happy 4th. We should have said that last week. This is
I know.
post. Yeah.
We celebrated 250 years. America's awesome.
Yep.
So.
It's been very fun to see all of the people that have come over for the World Cup that were here for 4th of July. I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of never experiencing like fireworks in like a neighborhood and then seeing it. That would be a lot to take in, let alone like we don't do big fireworks shows in town anymore because I just don't like dealing with that many people.
Yeah, but where we live, New Mexico's only 2 hours away, and they have good fireworks.
They have the ones that get off the ground.
Everyone in our neighborhood goes there and gets some good ones.
Yes,
even we did it this year, and it was awesome.
We have a 360 view of fireworks all weekend, basically.
And it was awesome.
And even from our house, not from our house particularly, but our neighborhood, we could even see the last year that they're doing a mountain fireworks. So we stayed home and didn't have to deal with people and still got a lot. But getting to see the reels and videos of people posting that have never experienced America, let alone America on the 4th of July, it's been pretty fun.
That's because we're awesome. We're the best. And I didn't know this.
Okay.
But I have just learned that cities and areas are getting away from fireworks and doing drone shows.
Mm-hmm. Ben is very upset about this.
And I'm just telling everyone that does that, that's a disgrace to the 4th of July. It's a disgrace. That is not how you celebrate 4th of July.
Better?
Yeah. You want to do that for other things? By all means. I think it's cool that we're using technology in a fun way. Great. But I guess because I heard Tucson, this was their last year doing fireworks.
They're switching over to the drones.
They're switching over to the drones, and that's a disgrace, in my opinion. And no, that's not
have
how
a lot of hot takes. And when we
fireworks I love 4th of July.
Yeah.
Because I love American history. I love my country. And that's just how we have celebrated it. And I think it's awesome.
Literally, I know it's not fireworks, but it's literally in our national, like the rockets, red glare, the bombs bursting in air. Like it is like, to me, every time I see fireworks, that is the line of the song that it makes me think of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a great holiday. It's fun. And it's meant to be fun. And so, yeah. Anyways, that's my hot take.
Okay. Well,
all right. We can move on.
Hot takes with Ben. All right.
We'll move on. Season 5, episode 3.
Yeah. I will get us started.
We have 3 stories.
There's 3 stories for you guys. So the Blackstock Lumber Fire occurred around 10 p.m. 25 trucks responded to the 4-alarm blaze. When the trucks arrived, the fire appeared to be controlled. Or controllable, I should say. However, within a matter of seconds, the fire spread to other parts of the lumberyard and became one of the biggest fires in Seattle's recent history of the time. 32-year-old Matt Johnson and his partner, Bill Meredith, were 2 of the first firefighters to make entry into the building. The roof had exploded while they were inside. Both Matt and Bill were overcome with an intense heat. The lack of oxygen and the heat left Matt unable to move. Bill became lost and disoriented in the fire, but eventually was able to escape. Tragically, Matt's body was found in the rubble the next day. Sadly, he left behind a wife and a 15-month-old son. So that's how the Unsolved Mystery episode starts off.
Sad.
Yeah.
Dead
it's
firefighter.
terrible.
Awful.
Yeah. And this is terrifying. Throughout American history, there is several devastating fires that have occurred that have almost reshaped parts of American history. A lot of them have had long-term effects on legislation being passed and safety and different things like that. So these are always a tragedy. And it's even more so when the person that goes in there to try to help save people ends up losing their own life. And we're grateful for first responders because they run in when everybody else is running out. So at first, the fire investigators assumed that the fire had been started accidentally, likely by a vagrant that was trying to keep warm. The investigator, his name is Dennis Flower. He is interviewed on Unsolved Mysteries. Believes he discovered a pattern in the ruins that matches the signature of a serial arsonist that he has been tracking for years. Flowers first encountered this arsonist in 1984 when Seattle's carpet exchange warehouse burnt down in less than 20 minutes flat. The fire was so intense that it melted concrete and warped steel beams. After the Blackstock Lumber Fire, the Seattle Fire Department began to investigate this on a national level. According to them, they found at least 20 other fires, both in the United States and Canada, that seemed to be started by the same individual, and they dubbed him the King of Arsonists. Fires set by this arsonist were especially dangerous because the oxygen in their water only made the fire burn faster and hotter. This is according to the police department. They're actually saying that putting water on the fire made the fire more intense. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I don't know anything like about fire.
They're saying the oxygen that is in the water is a chemical, obviously, made the fires burn more intense. So they weren't able to get control of these serial arsonist fires that were being started. This is just, stay with me. We're going to circle back around to some of these things. One factor that made the arsonist difficult to track was that he used a fuel of unknown origin, the accelerator that left no residue behind and was called, quote, a high temperature accelerator, or they refer to it as an HTA. And according to Flowers, it generates temperatures between 5,000 and 7,000 degrees. And that's in Fahrenheit for people across the pond. That's 3 times hotter than your normal standard fire. A series of tests are performed with various types of fuel in order to determine which one the arsonist likely used. And on March 25th, 1990, the Seattle Fire Department set a test fire in an empty shopping center. The entire complex was destroyed within minutes. Put a pin in that fact. We're going to circle back around to that as well. The fire helped narrow down the types of fuel that the arsonist might have used. The fuel, which the Seattle Police Department has kept secret, is a mixture of several common ingredients that are readily available. However, only someone with a very specific knowledge of chemistry would know how to put this all together to create this accelerant. Flowers believes that the arsonist actually hires other people to set fires, which I'm going to be honest, when I heard that, didn't make a lot of sense. Because what we do know about arsonists is that they like to watch the fire burn. Like that is one profile of an arsonist, is that they enjoy seeing the destruction. So hiring somebody to set fires to something seems counterintuitive to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only fire that produced an eyewitness was actually the Blackstock Lumberyard fire. One eyewitness had read about the fire in the newspaper and realized that he had been in the area about 15 minutes prior to the alarms going off. He was driving along the road of the lumberyard when he noticed a 1970 or 1980s Mercedes coming out of the parking lot of the lumberyard. He felt that this was unusual because of the time of night. Another eyewitness claimed that she saw a suspicious man after the fire was set. While crowds were looking at the fire in progress, the man was apparently walking away from the area, paying no attention to the large fire nearby. She felt that the man's actions were suspicious, and investigators believed that that man was the arsonist and that he had set fire and waited until the crowds gathered before he walked away from the scene. So, this next part is probably Ben's favorite part of the story. Under hypnosis.
You know how I feel about that.
Mm-hmm. The two eyewitnesses described two different men. Both are not considered a suspect, but the police would like to question them, even though they said earlier that investigators believe that the man they saw walking away was the arsonist. Then they come out and say, actually, no, we would just like to talk to these people. The man driving the Mercedes-Benz appeared per hypnosis to be between 35 and 40 years old. And that was in 1992 with gray hair, mustache, and beard, along with a receding hairline. The man seen leaving the fire was at least 6 foot, well-dressed, and in his early to mid-30s. Again, that was in 1992, with an athletic build, dark complexion, and dark hair. The arson fires have claimed the lives of at least 2 firefighters, Matt Johnson and Paul Hendrick, who died in a 1982 warehouse fire. The fires have taken place in Spokane, Yakima, Seattle, and Bellingham, as well as California, Florida, and parts of British Columbia. Authorities are currently investigating suspicious insurance claims for fires across the nation for a connection to the arsonist. So that's kind of where Unsolved Mystery leaves us. You've been really quiet. Do you have any thoughts so far on the things that...
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was just kind of letting you try to tell it because it was confusing the way they were telling it. And it's a tragedy. And here's the other thing. I don't know. Like, there is a science behind it. Like, you have to understand things about it, how it burns. Like, sometimes water works, sometimes water doesn't.
Fire is a chemical reaction, so it can be studied.
But then the point I'm making is I don't know a lot about it. I'm not a firefighter, so I don't know. And they're telling you these things, and you have experts on there. And
if anyone hears anything in the background, our cat is demanding that the one door closed in the room, I guess there's 2 doors closed, to be open, which, yes, there we go. Thank you, Ben, for doing that. Anyway, sorry, the cat interrupted your thought.
Yeah, you have these experts, these fire investigators, and they're saying this burned. It didn't burn the way it's supposed to. It burned so fast. When things burn, they don't burn at this heat. Who am I to say? I don't know.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I know nothing about this field.
5,000 to 7,000 degrees seems extreme. And now, again, you're the same. I heard that and I was like, I don't know if that's actually really possible. But again, I don't know. I am not a chemist. I'm not a scientist.
What I'm saying. I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. But the thing I was a little like, what is they're telling us there's this serial arsonist. But I guess what I'm saying is, they really didn't bring anything forth to say, like, this is why we know it's an arsonist. They're saying it's not burning the way it usually burns. They think there's chemicals, but then they couldn't even tell us what chemicals it was being used to burn it. And they didn't even have any evidence of where and how these started. And so I guess what I say, like, you're telling me these things, I'm kind of going off that you're the expert in the room, but you know how I feel that sometimes the expert in the room is it can't, I don't know. This one, like I said, it was confusing because they just tell like, there's a serial arsonist and we need to figure this out. And there was a terrible fire where someone died.
And then they say that they believe it's connected, but you're right. They don't really bring a lot. And to me, they had to toss that net quite wide. You're telling me that there's a serial arsonist throughout all of the United States and Canada? My thing is if you pulled a search engine of that far and wide, you're going to find similarities between fires.
Well, and that, I guess that's kind of what I'm probably not making a lot of sense, but kind of what says they did cast this massively large net. And don't get me wrong.
And California to Florida is as far as you can get across from each other.
And I have said this before, like you never eliminate anything, right? And arsonist is not off the table, but you also didn't bring anything forth that you eliminated everything else. It just appears that everything's on the table still. Mm-hmm. It could have been an accident. I guess
it seems like it quickly went to arsonist.
You didn't show everyone like how we know it's not an accident. We know it's this.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just because they didn't have enough time to kind of lay it all out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's your update. So it categorized this as unresolved. So I do have some answers on some things.
All right.
We're going to get into it a little bit. So in 1993, a man named Paul Keller is actually arrested for several arson fires in the Seattle area. Originally, there was a theory that he might be this, quote, king of arsonists. And at his trial, he did admit to setting fires on at least one of the buildings that they had categorized as this one using this secret formula and all of that. However, the fires that he set were not sophisticated and just simply used gasoline. So that was the big thing that the authorities believed. And one authority in particular, it was the fire investigator. Let me get his name back up here for you. Why can't I find it? Oh, Flowers. Fowers, Fowlers, okay? So he is the head of the Seattle Fire Department investigation, and he is the one who campaigned this testing and mixing of other chemicals and the searching and stuff. This was kind of his, is it Black Horse? What am I thinking of? Like his White Rabbit or something. Like this was his rabbit hole that he was really focused on.
He had this belief and he really
locked in on it. Yeah. And so he was actually one of the main people to speak at Paul Keller's trial. So Paul used gasoline, like I said, it wasn't sophisticated. He also didn't match either of the sketches or any really of the physical descriptions of the other suspects noted. And in February of 1993, Seattle Police Department announced that they were looking into two men wanted in questioning to the Blackstock Lumber Fire. So Paul was not arrested for that. He did admit to being an arsonist and took responsibility for one of the fires, but that was not the Blackstock one. So these men that were identified after tips came in regarding the sketches of possible suspects in the case. One man was from Illinois and did have a criminal history that included being hired, according to him, as a professional arsonist. Typically, you would see that for insurance purposes. The other man, who was reportedly seen driving away from the lumber yard in the Mercedes, was to be from the Seattle area, and it's not really known if these men were ever seriously questioned or taken into any sort of custody, but they were at least identified. They figured out who they were. So fast forward February 1995. A new investigation is opened by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I didn't know that they did stuff with fires, but I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they do.
They're really,
fires and explosives.
Yeah, that's a big part of their job.
Mm-hmm.
So they looked into the Blackstock Lumberyard fire and determined that it was actually an accident. The investigators concluded that the, quote, high temperature accelerant was actually not used at all for this fire. Instead, they determined that what most likely happened is that transients started a fire accidentally while sneaking into the warehouse to try to stay warm that night. Lumber and chemicals used to treat lumber are stored at the facility and helped escalate the fire. Finally, the last big piece of this puzzle is that there was a 440 volt electric line that was connected to a live power line, which they believed caused the sparks and sort of like explosions seen by witnesses. So the Seattle Police Department did change the cause of the fire to, quote, undetermined, and kind of steered away. But they didn't necessarily close the door altogether. So there's actually a full report written about this by the ATF investigator in charge. His name is Steve Carman, and he released a whole, you can still find this PDF of it. He reviewed the fire that Flowers and his team set at the shopping center, which I found was interesting that he investigated that. Okay. And determined that it actually didn't reach the temperatures that allegedly occurred during other arsenic fires. The shopping center was also not destroyed by the fire, as Flowers had claimed. The test fire did not mimic a high temperature accelerant use at all. The hottest temperature recorded, according to the report, was about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, way below the potential 7,000 degree fire that he claimed was what was happening. So Carmen designated this as a typical burn pattern of an HTA arson that is still hotter than a normal fire, but the pull-up fire was set with, and that's the other thing, to get that building to burn, that shopping center to burn down, which they didn't actually, the roof never even caved in. The structure still stood after the fire. The guy's team had to bring in 462 pounds of accelerant to get that building to even burn as far as it did. Which raises the question, if there's a serial arsonist going around who even has something more strong or is providing more stuff, how are they carrying on 500 pounds of accelerant? It's just not as feasible. So there was a lot of things that later, in the later report, what would I say? By 95, they had kind of already realized that we're incorrect with the...
They were backpedaling a little bit.
Yeah. And I will say, the Paul Keller, there's several things. He had to go through several trials and different things like that because a lot of testimony and quote unquote facts that were brought against him ended up being what you would now call junk science. Flores was interviewed or was questioned or not interrogated. What's what I'm looking for? When they're on the stand, he was brought on the stand as a witness or as a...
He testified.
He testified as a expert. And this is, you and I had this conversation. This is not throwing shade at fire departments. We've learned a lot, but there was a period of time where fire departments, I'm going to guess in order to save money, instead of having maybe someone with a 4 or 6 or 8 year degree in some sort of fire science, sent some firemen from the fire department to the Holiday Weekend Express, and they took some classes and took a test and were given a certificate. And that certificate really early on didn't really have a lot of like restrictions and boundaries at how far that expertise would go. And I'll tell you how I can compare it to. I went to beauty school years ago, and you go to school full time for just over 2 years. And then you have to go and take a state test, right? And I'm given a license that allows me to practice whatever I'm deciding to practice. And at the time, it was the state of Oregon. And because I was in beauty school for so long, we did learn to look for concerning warning signs of health. Because if we're touching your skin and your hair and your nails, or, being close to you, we were trained to look for signs of illness or disease, or even long-term terminal things, and how to treat people as we're interacting with them, not treat them as medical professionals. But they made it so clear to us, like, your boundary of, hey, I've noticed something, you should go see a doctor, has to be like, it's such a fine line. Because we were watching a documentary about a lady who had been poisoning somebody. Arsenic poisoning can show up at times in your fingernails as lines across the nails. I think I shared it was Unsolved Mysteries.
Let's say it was it was the Diabolical Mind.
The Diabolical Minds, right? The mom. And I think I might even mentioned that.
Yeah, we talked about
this. I could not diagnose that person.
Yeah, you just said to, like, hey, you should really go do this.
Who's feeding you at night? Like, ask a few questions and prompt them in the right direction. That's kind of how I compare this. I think when these certifications of being a fire investigator, there wasn't kind of that push and pull of like, hey, here's your limit, of where at this point you need to involve the next higher up person. And so I even wrote down just a few things that we've kind of debunked. And then if you want, we don't have to go over them. I thought these were just kind of interesting.
All right, go ahead.
Because a handful of these now have actually been proven that we arrested a lot of people and put innocent people in jail for things based on some of these findings. So in the 80s and 90s, the belief was that, quote, pour patterns on the floor always almost indicate an accelerant used. An accelerant would be then an intentional fire. However, today in 2026, similar patterns can be created by what is called a flashover, melting plastics, or burning of furniture. Because a lot of our furniture now is made of other materials than just wood. Another belief was in the early days is that deep burning means that was the fire's hottest point. So that's obviously where the fire had started. I think to the layperson, that seems to make sense. However, the new understanding of fire science is that heat can be concentrated in many locations based on ventilation, fuel load, collapse. Deep burning alone is no longer considered the point of origin. The other one that was really big deal, that cracked glass indicates rapid heating from a fire that had been, an accelerant had been used. We don't believe that to be true anymore. Multiple origins always meant that it was an arson if there was multiple starting points. Actually, now today, fires can appear to have multiple starting points due to what they call flashover, collapse, or fire spread. And then again, this was the big one for this, is that hot fires always suggested that an accelerant of some kind had been used. However, now we take into account that a lot of places burn hotter because of synthetic furniture and plastics where there has not been any accelerants used. So the big thing that changes the term flashover was the biggest scientific advantage with better understanding the scientific method in how we test and understand fires. And flashover occurs when a room becomes so hot that nearly all combustible materials ignite simultaneously. So almost like a mini explosion within that room. And that leaves different kind of marks. Anyways, so I thought that was interesting because understanding the study of science, the study of fires around and scientifically unpacking them has actually helped us put less people in prison who shouldn't be there, and has actually helped exonerate people of things. So authorities today have yet to technically close all cases linked to what may have been a king of arsonists throughout the United States. I don't believe, if you want my honest opinion, there was ever a king of arsonist.
Listen, I'm fine with them leaving this open. A man died trying to do his job. And unless you can say emphatically that it was an accident and you know exactly how it was started, we've talked about this on the show. Don't close doors unless you can close them. And so my point is
the ATF kind of did close the door.
But they did it like 4 years later.
Yeah, fair.
So I guess, and I would say this on anything else. You're now coming in. You didn't get first look at this scene. Mm-hmm. So can you say for certain? You also have other people, like you also have other experts, and we can debate if they really should have been as expert level, but you also have them saying it's possible it was an arson. So you have two conflicting things. So then no, you can't close it. I think it's good because maybe something will come forward. Mm-hmm. And if that door ever does open and it was someone.
Do you think it was an actual, quote, one person king of arsonists setting fires throughout Canada and all of the United States?
I probably not. But kind of what I went back, I don't know because I don't know anything about that. Mm-hmm. It did kind of appear the way they were telling it. It was like this.
A little bit of a stretch.
It just seemed like we were really going like. I've said this before. We skipped a lot of steps to get to like this king of arsonist. You know, this mastermind who's running around the country doing.
Well, to me, it goes back to like even how you feel about conspiracy theories. Like you're telling me that there is one individual.
It kind of felt a little bit like a conspiracy, and you didn't bring anything forth to make me really think there's some strong evidence in this conspiracy. Because there was, to me, an arsonist has got to have a reason behind doing it. And if someone is going to that length to go across Canada and the United States to set fires, then you're looking at a domestic terrorist, right? I mean, at that point, That's what I'm saying. It does sound like a conspiracy.
There is no one coming forth and making demands or asking for release of anything or money or what have you. And so it's like, I get there's a lot of ways to start a fire, but there's also not. It takes a spark. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, you said it was, but you also didn't eliminate that it could have just been an accident.
Well, and you claimed that this one guy, Keller, one of his fires was it, or they thought that a few of them were. Turns out
he just used gas.
The guy was using gasoline and setting a match on the outside of the building in the back corner and running away. Like nothing sophisticated at all.
Yeah, it doesn't match up.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, it's.
I don't know. I just know a lot of fire science now is considered to be, quote, junk science. And I think we've learned a lot, which I think is always important. It'd be interesting what we've learned in another 50 years about how fire works and the different things. We just watched that freaking show, The Worst Neighbor Ever.
Yeah, it was wild.
And I don't want to give it too much away, but there is an explosion that happens in that. And I am so grateful because it was the ATF that came in and was like,
He noticed certain things. He did a great job.
To look for and honed in on stuff very quickly.
Yeah, they all did. Law enforcement did a good job of investigating it.
Absolutely.
And getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I 10 out of 10 recommend. I think that would be a fun one for us to do for some sort of special thing is to recap those because those stories are nutso bananas. Okay, well, real quick, while I'm going to assume Ben has to get his notes, just a quick reminder to please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. It means the world to us, and I don't know, all your wildest dreams will come true if you leave us a good 5-star rating and review. Follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Unsolved Couple Pod. And on Facebook, it's Unsolved Couple Pod Discussion Group. If you have any questions, please send us an email, unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com. Okay, Ben, was that enough time for you to get your notes going?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, this was a long one. This was most of the episode. All right. We have revisionist history, and you know how I feel about this, but We'll discuss that later.
This one's not as severe.
I agree. All right. This is the story of the political assassination of Huey Long. I will 100% honest, never heard of this.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Had you ever heard of this piece of history before?
I've never heard this guy. I didn't know anything about this. So, because Robert Stack comes in and tells us.
He has a very early belief on what was his big thing.
He was a pretty
wealth
radical.
Distribution, right?
Yes.
But radicalism that we see today, people try, and this is not me saying anything left, right, or center. His viewpoints for the time were insanely progressive. And he was in the South.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was a senator for Louisiana. And he was considered he was considered by some to be kind of a radical, as you were saying, right? So he had this homegrown personality and persona. He only went to a year of law school, but even though he only did that, he argued 2 cases in front of the Supreme Court. So he became pretty popular pretty quick. And when he was 34, he became governor of Louisiana. I found out it was in 1928 was when he was governor. Did you
find out any more about what he argued in front of the Supreme Court?
No.
Okay. I was interested.
I didn't really look into it.
He went before the Supreme Court. Okay. Like, what was his points and did he win?
Yeah.
We don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, they don't share that. Okay.
A lot of stuff gets argued in front of the Supreme Court. So
that's what I mean.
Like I said, as you already said, as in my notes, he had this philosophy of distributing wealth. At 37, he was elected to the U.S. Senate, and he became a pretty big national figure, even to the point where there was rumors of him running for president in 1936, which was kind of a crazy idea because FDR was president and he was a Democrat and Huey Long was a Democrat. But as I dug into more of it, Huey Long didn't like the New Deal. He thought it wasn't good enough and he wanted more progressive things.
The New Deal.
Which was what FDR started for the Depression.
Okay. And I will say, I do find it interesting that he campaigned on the back of wealth distribution post the Great Depression. I mean, to me, that seems...
He hated
yes,
the oil companies.
Yeah.
So
when we've studied the Great Depression a little bit more and the wealth gap that took place, I can understand why he gained such a big following.
Politicians, all politicians do that. When there's crisis, they capitalize.
Yes.
There's the saying, like, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah. Which I find interesting when people want to do that with wealth distribution, but yet they're capitalizing. That's another podcast for another day.
We can't get into politics here. So yeah, I mean, he became very popular in his home state. But obviously, he angered the rich and powerful and other people in the state. And to the point where, and they do kind of do this. I get it. They can't really give you a full history lesson. Robert Stack tells a story like he got some people so upset that they started arming themselves and were in the streets to squash his support.
Yeah, I had a lot of questions about this.
Reading about it.
They showed pictures. Were those pictures from those?
But also reading about it, there was this massive debate, I guess. I'll give very quickly. The mayor of Baton Rouge got reelected and Huey Long didn't like him. So he was trying to consolidate power. And Huey Long also established kind of this small army of 2,500 people and armed them.
This is terrifying.
Dude, politics back then, it was wild.
It's wild because if that stuff happened, that's an insurrection. This is insane behavior.
Both sides were doing this. So I'm not pointing the finger at one side or the other. I'm just saying this was clearly
You're sharing history. Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't know a ton about this. So I did read quite a bit today and the other day as I was doing my research on this. It just sounded like it was a lot of chaos. A lot of chaos going on in this.
It was a pressure cooker.
Well, and you had the Great Depression going on. Anyways, so.
When you were still battling civil rights in the South at that point too. Like everything, there was a lot of lines divided in the sand.
So, but he did have a reputation of being cutthroat and vindictive. If you crossed him, he came after you. He didn't just come after you. He came after your family, your business, your land. He would do anything he could to kind of take you out from under the knees. And that's what was happening. Like someone had gotten elected. He was trying to swipe them out, trying to kind of take their power out from underneath them. All right. Henry Judge Pavey of St. Landry Parish was one of those that he targeted. So we do learn that Pavey's 29-year-old son-in-law, Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, they tell us he was apolitical. Didn't seem to really have one side or the other. And he was pretty successful. Robert Stack tells us he was coming after the judge, his son-in-law, kind of apolitical, but for some reason, these two worlds are going to come colliding. On September 8th, 1935, Long was walking between the Senate House chambers and the governor's office. He was there in the evening, and he had a bunch of bodyguards because Long, tensions were high. Long had multiple death threats. And as history writes, it says that Dr. Weiss, so the son-in-law, the 29-year-old Dr. Carl Weiss, he laid in wait. And when Long was just outside the governor's office, so he was still in the building, he was in the hallway. Long goes in the governor's office. He comes out, and Dr. Weiss shoots Long. They get into a confrontation. He shoots Long. Long's bodyguards return fire and kill Dr. Weiss. They shoot him over 60 times.
The reenactment I thought was an over dramatic. Like I was like, dude, they went really overboard with this. But it turns out it wasn't. It was, and this is in a hallway.
Yeah. No, yeah. It was wild. And Dr. Weiss's .32 caliber pistol was found beside him. Long, like I said, he'd been shot, but he didn't die on scene. He actually stumbled out of the building himself, got driven to the hospital. He had surgery done, but they were unable to stop all the bleeding and the injuries, and he died 30 hours later. Huey Long was 42 at the time. So they did, 5 days later, they did an inquiry into the shooting and the assassination, and it was deemed that Dr. Long assassinated Dr. Weiss assassinated Huey Long, and that his motive. It's
confusing because they talk about the judge, who's his father-in-law, and then there's this atypical, neutral man who they're saying killed this guy.
And they're saying he did it over to because of his father-in-law.
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
to protect his father-in-law. But like I said, we have revisionist history. Robert Stack comes in and says, there's evidence that it possibly has come forth that says maybe Huey Long was killed by accident and Weiss was innocent. And we get a historian, Ed Reed. He's kind of the one bringing this forth. He doesn't think that Dr. Weiss is the one that killed Huey Long. So, sorry, I'm finding my spot now. So the day Long was shot, Weiss had dinner at his parents' house, which was pretty normal. And he was married to the judge's daughter, Yvonne. They hung out. They went home. It was a pretty typical day. They said even at the dinner, his father was asking his daughter-in-law, like, what's going on with this politician? He's trying to like destroy your father and his life. And it seemed like all the people there said Dr. Weiss was actually kind of downplaying Huey Long's actions. Like, hey, like, we don't really know what's going on. And it seemed like his father was the one. He seemed more upset about the whole thing than Dr. Weiss. So, they actually get Dr. Weiss's son. He, I guess, doesn't really give interviews, hasn't really talked.
He was like an infant when this happened.
He was
right?
3 months old.
Yeah. Okay.
So he says, I don't really know. This is all stuff that I've been told secondhand. He goes, but he said they had dinner, then he'd spent the day at home. And then that evening, he went to a man's house named Morgan. And he was a doctor. So back then they kind of did some home visits. He'd made some phone calls at Morgan's house. I guess he had a surgery the next day. He was setting that up. And then for reasons unknown, no one knows why he went to the state house. And at 9 p.m., the session was still going. And what was happening that night was they were trying to pass a law. They were trying to redistrict the judge's district so that he would be, and they were trying to gerrymander it out of existence. So now then the judge would be, his whole judicial district would be gone, and the judge would be without a job. So Dr. Weiss went into the hallways. He waited for Huey Long. Supposedly he tried to approach him 3 different times, and Long kind of brushed him aside. It's like, I don't have time for you. And at 9:20, he approached Long for the 3rd time, and that supposedly is when he shot and killed him. But Ed Reed tells us that that's not what happened. He didn't shoot Long, that he actually punched Long. They kind of got into a fight. He went to him the 3rd time. Huey Long was aggressive with him, and so he punched him. And in that chaos, his bodyguards pulled their guns and started shooting Weiss. And with that many bullets going, Ed Reed thinks that one of those bullets actually hit Huey, and that Dr. Weiss didn't kill him because there was threats on his life. So everyone was kind of on high alert. So,
I mean, I think that's a plausible theory with that many guns, that many bullets in that space of time.
Yeah.
I think it's worth having a conversation about at least.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
So Ed Reed says this is all the evidence he brings forth. He doesn't think he was an assassin because there's no paper trail. There's the way he was living his life, the way he was going about his day is not normal of an assassin, of someone that's planning on taking someone's life that night. He did own.
What do we know about political assassins? They're usually pretty radical in their thoughts and behaviors. They usually want people to know. I guess we don't know who killed JFK, I guess. But do we know why?
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
JFK, yeah.
What about RFK?
I think we talked. That's the one we talked about.
The grassy knoll?
No, that's JFK.
That's JFK.
RFK is one we did where he got done. It was in the kitchen.
In the kitchen. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
There were some questions about that.
Yeah. I can't remember. I didn't know a lot about that one.
I'm just saying typical behavior with someone who's trying to assassinate someone of political power. Usually we see more radical behavior.
Yeah.
And there doesn't appear. Now, again, I always say, let's look who's being interviewed. It is his family members and stuff like that. So we need to take things with a grain of salt. They have a little bit more of a reason to maybe paint things in a more positive light. But I mean, as I was watching this, at first I rolled my eyes like, oh, here we go. But I think they brought up some valid points throughout the story that we're being told.
I agree.
But again, I didn't do any research on it. So
like I said, it wasn't acting normal. He did own a .32 caliber gun, which he supposedly kept in the glove compartment of his car. Ed Reed says he found evidence that he was not shot by Weiss. A story of a relative of one of the surgeons. If you can follow that story.
Again, I instantly don't believe
we
this
don't
story.
know how.
Yeah.
Story from the relative, and we don't even know who that relative is of the surgeons, said that a .38 caliber bullet was pulled from Long in surgery. Okay. He went in for surgery. They pulled a bullet out, and the doctors are like, whoa, that looks like a .38. Well, Dr. Weiss owned a .32. His bodyguards had .38s and .45s. I did look. The difference between a .38 caliber bullet and the .32 caliber bullet is like 0.042 inches, like 1.2 millimeters. You're asking a doctor that's pulling out to make that call right then and there.
Yeah.
Unless you've been pulling out bullets regularly.
Do you think you could spot the difference
between a .32 and a .38? I've never seen a .32. .32s are not common anymore.
Were they more common back then?
.38s aren't even very common. Yes, they were.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Anyways.
As someone who does carry a handgun and who shoots on a regular basis, you're even saying you would have a hard time, like...
Yeah, if you handed me the whole bullet, I could, but a slug?
And just said, tell me what size this is? Yeah.
Unless you're asking me to tell the difference between a 22 and like a 40 or 45. And a slug that
also just came out of someone's body.
Yeah. So here's the thing. But okay, he says that this relative of a surgeon says that they pulled out a .38 and not a .32. So according to Reed, too, a second bullet was found while preparing Long's body for burial. The mortician in charge, he told Reed, so this is coming from his mouth, that Dr. Clarence Laurel, one of the surgeons and he was a close friend of Long's, he shows up at the mortuary or whatever. And as he's trying to prepare the body for burial, he shows up and starts rooting around in Long's body and pulls out a second slug. And the mortician said it was as big as the first joint on his index finger. I don't know why he picked that to compare it to, but okay. And Ed Reed says, listen, the only bullet that big is a .45, which is what his bodyguards were carrying. My question is, if the surgeon knew it was there, first off, how did he know it was there? Why didn't he pull it out during surgery?
Yeah.
A lot of questions.
This was the one part of the story that I feel like didn't have as much weight to maybe the other questions that were being raised.
Yeah. Ed Reed also believes that there's no way Weiss couldn't have gotten into the Capitol with a gun. He thinks security would have been too high. Obviously, there was no metal detectors. It was a different time back then, but he thinks someone would have frisked him, someone would have seen the gun on him, and he would have been disarmed before he got into there. Supposedly, also, he tells a story that within 30 minutes of Long being shot, rumors had gotten out that Weiss was the killer, and his brother Tom, Ed, and cousin Jim, they'd heard the rumors and they went to the Capitol. They found his car and saw his bag in the front seat. They couldn't get in because the doors were locked. And they're like, well, my dad's got keys. So they went to go get keys from their father's house. They came back and his car had been moved. They found his car on the other side of the building. When they opened the car, the bag that they saw in his front seat had been gone through and the gun was missing. There's no way to know if the gun was there or if Weiss had taken the gun in with him. But Eli Sayuk was a security guard at the Capitol, and he told Ed Reed the gun was removed from the car by someone other than Carl Weiss. He doesn't give details how or who, but they believe the security guard tells him, hey, listen, no, that was actually done later. Someone went to his car, they got the gun, and then they put it next to him. Okay. He also thinks if he really wanted to kill Long, he had multiple opportunities to do it. Why did he do it then? At one point, Long had his back to Weiss. Why didn't he shoot him in the back? He could have unloaded on him. And also, there was evidence that when Long showed up to the hospital, he had a cut on his lip and he was bleeding. And someone asked, what's that from? He said, that's where he hit me. And I guess a nurse even swore an affidavit that that's what he'd said. So that's where he punched me, is what he said. So that kind of is to his story that he punched him, didn't shoot him. So a few years after all of this, the inquiry and all that, the documents and the gun went missing. No one knows where the file for the investigation went, and the gun that was used to shoot Huey Long disappeared. In 1987, Professor James Starr, he's a forensic expert, and he's pretty good at finding stuff. And he actually is. He began researching the case. He started looking for the missing evidence. He said, he's like, I went through all the names of possible people that could have had it or whatever. And Louis Guerre was the head of the Criminal Bureau of Investigations at the time. He died in 1966. This is actually genius. He went and found Guerre's will. And in the will, it listed miscellaneous files of no value. And he's like, no one puts that in their will. And also, under his personal effects, he didn't hide the ball. He literally put in his will that he had Carl Weiss's gun. So that gun was traced.
That's crazy to me, right? Was that in evidence? Was that supposed to be in evidence?
It is the 30s. I don't think they categorize evidence.
I'm just
but it's weird that this guy would take the gun.
Missing, and then it ends up in this man's possession. Very
he takes
secretly,
the file and the gun.
And then also puts it in his will so that it can be.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
That is kind of crazy.
It might have not been in his will, but it might have been in when he died, they categorized everything he had. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Because usually security boxes at a bank are insanely hard to get unlocked.
Yeah, so a safety deposit box was in the possession of his daughter, and they got a court order and were able to.
That's what I mean. You have to jump through a lot of hoops.
And they got a court order.
If the zombie apocalypse ever happened, I'd like to get after safety deposit box in the banks and see what people have been hiding. Because I have a feeling there's crazy things in those things.
I'm sure there is. And in the box, they found the gun. They also found multiple bullets and a spent slug. They tested the slug, but the slug didn't come from the gun. Why that slug was in there, they don't know. So so they did find the files of the investigation. The Louisiana State Police reviewed the files and said that there is nothing in them that changes the verdict that Dr. Carl Weiss is the shooter of Huey Long. The son comes back and says, if you ask me today, do I think my dad did it? He says, no, I do not. So that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does. I think you did a good job. This was a lot to kind of unpack without going too deep also. Because I think there's probably a lot of history here that we're missing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 100% honest. Like, I'm not an expert on this subject.
Well, and Unsolved Mysteries told it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what, if anything, are any updates you might have for us?
Okay. Technically, this is still the way Unsolved Mystery says unsolved. According to the state of Louisiana, it's still solved.
Okay.
And Dr. Weiss is still the killer.
Okay.
Okay. But a former superintendent of the Louisiana State Police came forward. He said he believes, he came forward in like 92, something like that he believes Long was killed by his own bodyguards. Colonel Francis Grevenberg was his name. He said he was told by two eyewitness state troopers, that Weiss was unarmed when Long was shot. They told a story identical to Ed Reed's, the historian's, what he thought happened. He didn't come forth earlier because there were many of Long's allies still in state government, and he would have never gotten support for an inquiry, and he was told to drop it and leave it alone. I did find out that story, he said he didn't hear that story from those police officers until 1953, which is almost 20 years later. And then he didn't come forward with that for 40 more years. So by the time he came forward with this story, it's almost 70 years old. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard only because, and not to get too deep into it with what you do for work, you have come home and told us things at times that you've been told to let it go, drop it. And could I see our kids someday so we've had these conversations with?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, or if with everything that's happened in the world in 10, 15 years, for you to say, I saw this happening and here's why. And that's 10, 15 years later. And then our son or daughter down the road being like, my grandfather or my dad told me this story. Like, it's hard because I know that, but with that said, I also know the game of telephone, things change from time to time. Like, so you can't take it for 100%, but I do know, being married to someone who works in government and law enforcement, that there are times you've come home and been like mad because you've been told to drop it and let it go.
Yes. Also, one of the bodyguard's sons came out later and had said that when he was a kid, his dad took him to a bar. The bar was owned by another one of the bodyguards. They were buddies. And he introduced his son. I don't know. He didn't say how old he was. He introduced his son and said, this is the guy that shot Huey Long. And the guy just looked at him and turned his back and didn't deny it. That's the story he tells. This is the son of the bodyguard. Also, take this for what it is. An insurance company investigated it, found that Huey Long's death was accident, and paid out to the doctor's family.
That's the only thing I saw, was that an insurance company was involved, and I didn't quite understand the nuances of that, but that
they just looked into it and they thought it's very possible that this was an accident, and so they paid the Weiss family. But
then I also read on a different forum that like the judge and the father-in-law were like, they were high up connected people. Yeah.
I looked a little into this official inquiry that was done into Huey Long's death. We're dealing with a cat. Anyways, this inquiry that was done into Huey Long's death by professionals or whatever, it was all a sham. And that is pretty well documented, that it was pushed. It was the only people that were allowed to testify in it were loyalists to Huey Long. A doctor who testified in this inquiry that said all this stuff happened, later then admitted that he wasn't even there. Also, Long's body there was no autopsy done and no ballistics done.
Whoa.
Yes, that is a fact.
Yeah.
So there really was no investigation. I'm going to guess part of it is because there were so many witnesses saying the same thing. You have all these bodyguards and they said this guy shot him. We returned fire. They still did
an autopsy with Booth and there was witnesses for that too. And that was how many years before this? Quite a bit.
Yeah. So that's, like I said, that's really all I got. Technically, the state of Louisiana still claims that this is what happened. A lot of people out there think that he was not responsible, and that in the chaos of 60 plus bullets flying in a hallway, Huey Long was shot by his own bodyguard by accident.
Friendly fire is what they would call it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean,
I've you know how I feel about revisionist history, rewriting history. But, politicians are politicians.
Yeah.
And if you want me to believe into some type of conspiracy, do I think that it's very possible this guy confronted this politician, there was an altercation, and they shot and killed him, and then they were like, oh, crap.
He threw a punch, not pulled out a gun.
And we accidentally shot our boss because we decided to unload. And so it's the 30s, so they threw a throwdown gun and all told the same story. Yeah, I could buy it.
It's not far-fetched, is what you're saying.
It's not. It's not. And it's kind of one of those.
It doesn't involve like this person. Like I will say, so a lot of the other revisionist theories are like you have to believe some pretty obscure random things.
As I've said, and I said earlier, like we skipped a lot.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to skip.
Yeah.
That it kind of only two things happened here.
Yeah. And technically, since there was no investigation done, we can't eliminate one or the other.
Well, when you didn't do ballistics.
Yeah. Or an autopsy.
So why didn't you do ballistics? If you say the 30, like we should know that was a 30, you pulled the 32 slug out, So when you don't do those things and you skip those things, it does make me think that you're hiding something.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's no way of knowing, really. There really is no way of knowing the truth.
Yeah.
And this is what I do hate when people come forward and they tell these stories. And it's not that I don't believe you, but it's also kind of like, dude, you can't wait 20, 30, 40 years to tell these stories because it's really hard to buy that. This stuff has to be
something that supports. But I will say,
it has to be done at that time.
You have a few people that I will say, when you tell me that a family member or a relative of the surgeon who was there, that story, I'm not even going to.
I agree.
Bring that into the conversation.
I agree. A relative of a surgeon was there who heard a story.
But the son of the bodyguard, and then wasn't there a nurse that did an affidavit?
The nurse of the affidavit said that he said when someone asked him about his lip, that he said that's where he hit me. That's okay. Yeah.
But to me, like that fills up the bucket a little bit more that this was unfortunately a very terrible misunderstanding. I mean, you still can't go around punching senators and governors and stuff like that. You're going to get hands laid on you for sure if you try to do that. But the amount of guns that were pulled and just, you always, when we watch movies, especially older ones, where there's like people with guns, and they're flagging each other, which if you don't know what that term means, it means like you're holding a weapon and other people are walking in front of you, or you're waving your weapon in front of other people. Law enforcement is trained not to do that. But again, Hollywood hadn't caught up yet. And so the thought of that many people just pulling a gun and shooting, I actually said to Ben, it's a miracle that nobody else died that night.
Absolutely. I guess they did exhume Dr. Weiss's body.
Yeah.
Way later. And just in his bones alone, found over 30 bullets. And that's not counting the ones that didn't hit bone.
That's insane.
So yes, he was shot a lot.
Yeah.
And like I said back then, a 38 and a 45. 45s back then was 1911s. They only carry 8 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And a 38 was a revolver, which only carried like 5 or 6.
I think, yeah.
So that was like 10,
at bare minimum,
10 guys unloading.
Yeah.
A lot.
In a hallway.
A lot.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Let us know what you guys think. Okay. Yeah. I'm in the same kind of boat as you are. Maybe even a little bit more of the, I think that we are in the, it is probable that this man, unfortunately, after his death, was labeled incorrectly as an assassin.
This is one where you can get me to say it's possible the story in history we're being told might not be true.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to listen and buy into it.
Okay. All right. Well, to finish us off, I'm going to share with you, from my understanding, just so this doesn't get confusing, there's 2 baby X's in the world of Unsolved Mystery. And this is the first one, Baby X. But we do know that today her name is Mary Jane. So I'm going to be sharing the story of Baby X or Mary Jane. And this is a kind of crazy lost love that is true crime adjacent, because there is a crime involved in this. So on the morning of June 15th, 1947, a housewife in Weed, California, which I've actually been to Weed many, many times. It's between Myrtle Creek and like Shasta, or maybe it's just south. I can't remember if it's north or south, but driving, my grandma, I grew up going down to Napa Valley and Calistoga often and spending a lot of my time there. And you drive past Weed. And obviously as a teenager, I thought it was funny that there was a town named Weed. And then I also find it funny, like the teenage Sierra, that this lady's name is Mary Jane and then she's found in Weed, California. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. And this was 1947. I don't think that Weed or Mary Jane had the reputation it did by the time we were teenagers, but
maybe.
So this housewife in Weed, California takes a shortcut home from the grocery store through an overgrown field next to a dance hall. I miss dance halls. She heard the sound of a child crying and went toward it. Thank goodness that she did this. Hidden by the tall grass, there is a baby girl 2 years old. We now know that it was Mary Jane, but at the time, her identity was unknown. She had been severely beaten and appeared to be abandoned. So this sweet woman, which we don't really even get more information about who this is, but she was an angel to do this. She takes this little baby girl to the nearby hospital where this sweet little girl is placed in intensive care. And she has contusions on her head, face, and lacerations all over her body. I also found out later, at least in one newspaper report, that she also was covered head to toe in chickenpox. Like chickenpox had taken over her body and she hadn't been treated. So her eyes are virtually closed from swollen from being beaten so bad. One of her arms was so sore she couldn't move it. Obviously, this girl is suffering from shock and trauma. She is unable to tell authorities what happened to her or even to her name. So the hospital staff begins to call her Baby X. Today, Baby X is known as Mary Jane. She is a successful businesswoman and mother of 4. She has courageously overcome many of the hardships she suffered during her childhood. However, She feels that wounds cannot be completely healed until she finds a man named Jimmy, whom she's only met once, 45 years ago. She wants to tell her tragic story in hopes that somebody can help. So we are going to find out that Mary Jane is obviously an adult now, and she has put together some of the puzzle pieces. She's not looking for her origin story, we're going to find out. So Mary Jane recovers in the hospital. She was kept there because they did not know what to do with her, and she wasn't able to communicate at the time with the doctors or nurses, so they didn't know who to get into contact with. She assumes that she was very afraid and that if she spoke of anything, she would get hurt again. The police had absolutely no idea who she was, and so they send out photographs to dozens of newspapers that are published throughout Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. I found several of those on newspapers.com. It's so sad. So 2 weeks after these photos go out, a witness comes forward saying that baby X, they'd seen her in the newspaper and identified her as Mary Jane. The witness tells authorities that Mary Jane's mother is a woman who is 22 years old. Her name is Lucille, and she is originally from Salem, Oregon. She and Mary Jane's father, a man named Virgil, had divorced, and in 1946, she takes the children with her. After the divorce, she briefly leaves Mary Jane in a welfare home and then leaves her with her former mother-in-law for a little bit of time. And then by 1947, the mother, Lucille, is staying in a lodging camp, which is connected to like a logging development. So I think of it now as fire camp, but back in the day, especially because we're going to find out that they're in Southern Oregon, these loggers, part of what their pay was is that they had like lodging provided. They lived in like these cabins or, depending on what, and because they were working farther up in the mountains and transport back then wasn't as easy in and out. So she's living with her boyfriend and has given birth to a boy. So the boyfriend's name is, where can I find it? Let's see. Hugh. Okay. So Hugh is the birth father of Jimmy, the little boy that is living at the home.
Hugh is a douche.
Is a bad, bad man. And honestly, Lucinda is a bad, bad woman. They're both bad. They're bad, bad, real bad.
They're bad parents.
All around. Yeah. So he's 25. She's 21. So the police figure this out due to this tipster. So they show up at the camp and they knock on these people's door and they speak with Hugh and they show him a picture of Mary Jane. He says, no clue who this child is. Never seen her before in my life. However, now mind you, I don't know if they showed Hugh and Lucy, or is it Lucille? Oh, sorry, Lucille, the same picture. But I did find in my notes that they showed Lucille a picture of Mary Jane badly beaten. And upon her seeing the photo of her daughter, she admits that baby X is actually Mary Jane and that she and Hugh had taken her to Weed and abandoned her there. The reason that they claim that they did this is that because they had recently given birth to a new child, that they, quote, already had more children than they needed, end quote.
Okay. They didn't just abandon the child.
Well, that's where I think, I'm like, first off, he denies knowing who this child is. And then he says, okay, we decided to abandon
No, they beat the crap out of it and left it because they thought they'd killed the child and they were dumping the body.
Yeah.
But that child lived.
Yeah. And it appears that it's very possible because at least according to his timeline, he had beaten her and dropped her off days before she was found. They didn't just beat a baby girl to what he thought was death.
And then thought he was just dumping a body.
Mm-hmm. And the mother is completely aware of this plan. It sounds like, from my understanding, that she went with him to Weed, California. And I did not see this on Unsolved Mysteries. I saw this in one news report. So I'll say this. One news report reported that she had also been sexually assaulted. I could not find that anywhere else, and that was not listed in the affidavit of charges and stuff that we're going to go on later to find out about. But one news report from that area claimed that the baby had been found. And that was the time they didn't know who it was. Yeah. So initially he denies beating Mary Jane, but eventually admits that he had taken her into Weed by a bus where he abandoned her round on or about June 14th. But those dates also don't match with some of the news reports, so who knows? And later confesses to beating her a day or two before she was found, in the days before she was found. After Jimmy was born, the couple apparently decided that they needed to get rid of one of their children because there was just too many of them. And they chose Mary Jane because she was an incorrigible child who they were unable to potty train and properly feed. So the couple that's not even why we're here, you guys. Like, that's not even, like, this is a true crime show, but we're not even here for this story.
Well, this isn't the mystery.
This isn't a mystery.
These people are not a mystery. No, they're just horrible human beings. They're arrested in charge on child
abandonment, assault, and, like, attempted murder. So the mother's allowed one visit with Mary Jane in the hospital, which is insane to me, but different time, I guess. She brings the newborn Jimmy. It was the only time that Mary Jane would get to see her brother. 2 weeks later, Lucille and Hugh plead guilty to all charges and are sentenced to 20 years in prison. The fact that that's what they got is insane to me, but whatever. So Lucille actually passed away in 1991, and Mary Jane and an older sister, Leoma, Leoma, and Jimmy become wards of the state and are eventually separated. So Mary Jane initially went to live in Portland, Oregon, but spent most of her childhood in foster homes. She married at 16, and today she and her husband own a successful restaurant in California. They have 4 children, 10 grandchildren. And in 1988, she began searching for her siblings, so her sister and her brother. In 1991, she's able to find Leoma, who is living in Sacramento, California. But after more than 40 years apart, Mary Jane was unsure if she would accept her. She was worried about rejection. And she decided, though, that she was ready to accept whatever her sister wanted to do. Fortunately, no rejection happened. They were reunited and had remained close ever since. So now we've got 2 sisters. We know where they came from. We know their terrible origin story, but they are on Unsolved Mysteries to find their baby brother, Jimmy. So Mary Jane was happy to find out that her sister had had a good life and had genuinely turned out to be a nice person despite the circumstances. So her older sister notes that she'd had 2 brothers from her adopted parents, but had never had a sister before she meets Mary Jane. She's excited to meet her. And they just feel like joining forces, coming together, that they can find Jimmy. So what we do know about him is he was born by the name of James on June 14th, 1947 in or around Grants Pass, Oregon. They believe he was adopted out of Eureka County Hospital in California, and that a family from Oregon, and that his first name the family that adopted him was from Oregon, and that they may have changed his first name to Donald. So they feel like this is the missing link to their family. They would just like to know what happened to him, and they hope to finding him so that they can kind of finally close the chapter on what happened to them in their early years of their lives. And that's where Unsolved Mystery leaves us.
All right. Update.
All right. Solved. On the night of the broadcast, Jimmy was not watching the show, but his adoptive sister was. She immediately called her mother, who by then had contacted him. His name had been changed to Donald. He was anxious to meet his sisters. They were able to meet 2 weeks after the broadcast. Donald and his family drove from their home in
Fresno?
Thank you. I was going to say Francisco. And then that's all I could keep thinking in my head was Francisco. Francisco. What is that from?
We just did this in one of our episodes a couple weeks ago.
I know.
Elf.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Once I had Fresno, all I saw was Francisco. And then I had that line playing through my head. So Fresno, California to Mary Jane's home, where they joyously reunited after 45 years. They were happy to learn that he had a good life.
What a good adoptive family.
Yeah,
too,
he said that there were a lot of emotions going through his mind, but he was happy that they were together and looking forward to seeing what kind of relationship that they could build. So it seems as of, from what I could find, in 2008, the oldest sister passed away. In 2016, Donald passed away. And the original Mary Jane may have passed away. I found a few bit of Mary Jane.
But Mary Jane
California.
is a very popular name.
Yeah. So I might have found her obituary, but I'm not sure 100%. But it's possible she's still around, but it's also possible that she might have already passed on to and joined her brother and sister on the other side. So there you go. That's your lost love.
They were reunited.
Again, I tried to find more on the parents post-prison. I couldn't find anything on them. I hope they had miserable lives. What terrible human beings.
I agree.
Yeah, I cannot.
They are awful human beings.
Yeah. Beats a child, especially you. I guarantee you back then there was resources that if you wanted to, quote, abandon's the wrong word for it, but if you could not financially care, we've covered stories where people.
Well, we covered that one story of the twins who the mother died in birth and the father had like 8 kids and he took them to an orphanage. The point I'm making is
there were options.
That's not the answer. And because that was your answer.
Well, it goes to show you probably just wanted to beat a child to death.
It just means you were a bad person. You are is a rude person.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that you just couldn't feed an extra mouth. Like your rude human being who you are
an opportunity
is a terrible person.
And an opportunity presented itself and you took it.
Yeah, you jumped on it.
Immediately.
So.
Because where Donald's birth date is and like all of this happened was all right there. Yeah. And guess what? Babies don't just show up accidentally and they don't just show up untimed. Like you had several months to prepare for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a bad person. Goodbye. Good luck on whatever is happening to you in the afterlife. Because I can't imagine it's good. No. And if reincarnations exist, I hope you come back as a snail in a salt factory.
All right.
There you go.
Snail in a salt factory. It's the first time I heard that one.
That just came into my mind. That would be a really terrible thing to be.
You wouldn't last long.
You wouldn't last long. Okay. Well, guys, that's it. There was only 3 stories on this episode of Unsolved Mysteries, Season 5, Episode 3. And now let's move on to, real quick, if you're annoyed with the ads, down below is a link you can click on. You can get ad-free episodes with us. $4 a month, $1 an episode. Most of our episodes are over an hour. So dirt cheap. Cheapest thing you're going to find right now on the internet.
It's the best deal you got.
Best deal around. Okay. Silly question time with Ben. I found a reel that's just kind of rapid fire. Who would be better, me or you, at these kind of random one-off things? So I thought I'd go over them with you. Okay. Let's see. Who out of the 2 of us is best at using the phonetic alphabet correctly? Or what's the law enforcement alphabet? What's it called?
What
is it called, Ben?
What's it called, Sierra?
I don't know. So we've already answered this question.
Yeah.
What's it called?
I think we know the answer to this question.
But what is it called?
You said phonetic.
That's not right.
Yeah.
What is it called?
The name is actually slipping my mind right now.
I love that it's slipping your mind.
Because I use it every day.
What is... Now I'm going to have to look it up. Oh, you got egg on your face. I always have egg on my face, but I think it's funny that you can't remember the name of law enforcement alphabet. Do you think that's going to... Law enforcement alphabet is called... The phonetic. No, PHONETIC.
The phonetic
alphabet. Okay, I had it right. Okay. So who do you think is better at using the phonetic alphabet?
You can't look at it. Is it looking right now?
Yeah.
Is it telling you the answers?
I'd have to maximize it. You want to go through it right now?
What's A?
Alpha.
There you go.
Okay. What's
B?
Bravo.
C?
Cat.
Charlie.
D is Delta. E is Eagle. Elephant. What do you think he is?
What do I think he is?
Do
you want me to just do it for you?
Yeah.
Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot.
You're looking
Golf.
at it. Oh, you're just looking at the alphabet.
Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa, Quebec, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-Ray, Yankee, Zulu. That's the ones we use.
Okay. Well, I could come up with better ones. Okay.
What's you, Sierra?
What's you? Unicorn.
Did I say you? Uniform.
It should be unicorn. Let's be honest.
I knew you were going to say unicorn. That's why I asked you.
That's why you asked me that one. And I think all mine ended up being animals. I'm like, should be octopus. Right. Okay. So you win that one. Which one of us would be more upset about having to write with a pen that they didn't like the feel of? You.
I would say you don't like the feel.
I do love a good pen, but it also doesn't bother me if my pen doesn't work the way.
I am very picky. But you are
very particular about your pen.
Very picky about my pen.
Yeah. Who has the strongest emotional attachment to inanimate objects?
You. 100%.
What?
You.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are you talking we've got piles of rocks in the house and I can tell you where they're from and different things like that. Yeah. Ben, is there an inanimate object that you have really is there anything that you have a real sense of connection to in the house that's an inanimate object?
No.
I can only think of a few things. We've kept the kids as baby blankets. Those are really important to you. And your grandfather.
Is that an inanimate object though? Because that is heirlooms and stuff.
Yeah, so you have an heirloom from your grandfather, your belt buckle.
I have a couple belt buckles.
Okay,
but those,
so we're separating.
Yeah, I mean, our children's first blankets is not an inanimate. I mean, I understand it's just an object, but
So that's what my categories is it's just an object. It doesn't have any value or
your stuffy right there. That's an inanimate object.
Yeah.
And you have an attachment. You have an attachment to it.
Yeah, the rocks I bring home from places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baskets and things. I don't know. It's just you definitely can find connections to things way faster than I can find a connection to things.
I just have to look at something sometime and be like,
I mean, all the stuff in our library, you bought it at thrift stores. You have a connection to those things, even though
I don't buy things at thrift stores that I don't feel a weird connection
exactly
to, and I can't explain it.
And those are inanimate objects.
Yeah. I know I always tell people, I'm like, if Ben was not, our house is curated a
Very
museum
well.
of happiness.
It's
Like to me, it sparks joy and happiness, and it's things that I love and things that bring back memories. But if Ben was single and not married, his house would have an American flag and a giant television.
And a couch and a bed.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. Okay. If we were each a pair of shoes, who would be the most comfortable pair of shoes?
No, that's up for interpretation.
Okay. What do you mean interpretation? Tell me more.
Well, mine would be cowboy boots, and I find them comfortable.
Cowboy boots are not comfortable.
But they are, by some people, considered not comfortable.
Yeah. I actually only have one pair of shoes that are not, I have a lot of shoes, and I love crazy, weird, funky shoes. But my shoes are all comfortable. Yes. I have one pair of shoes that are uncomfortable, and it breaks my heart because I want to wear them so bad.
Which ones are those?
My snakeskin Gucci shoes, which is not a little bit of a flex, but I saved up for like 2 years to buy these white Gucci shoes, and they're red and green iridescent snakeskin. And I will be honest with you guys, they are the most uncomfortable pair of shoes. I've worn them twice, and each time I hate them. But I freaking worked my butt off and saved up all this money to buy these like dream shoes that I wanted to have. And then I wear them, and they're not comfortable in any way, shape, but they're some of the worst pairs of shoes I own. So I think I would be the more comfortable shoes.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Whose nails grow faster, mine or yours?
Yours.
No, you trim your nails way
I do
more.
trim quite a bit.
You trim your nails and your toenails triple the amount of times I have to trim.
Maybe
mine.
that's just because if you keep them short, they grow faster. If you let
my
them
nails
grow
are
long,
super short.
If you let them grow long, they slow down.
I have fake nails on, and my natural nail is super short.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Who's the most concerned about the existence of ghosts?
You.
Concerned about them? You have no concern about the existence of ghosts.
No.
No?
Because I'm not buying that I'm going to be haunted by ghosts.
You're not worried about being haunted?
No.
No? Okay. I do want to take a Tesla to a graveyard because that looks fun. Have you seen that trend?
No. This is the first time hearing about this.
Okay. So Teslas have like the detector that there's a presence of a human body.
Oh my
so
word.
People drive them through graveyards at night, and bodies show up on the screen.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
I've seen the videos of them. They do. You think it's detecting? No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
My brother has a Tesla. We are going to Utah in a few weeks. We should do it. Will you do it with me?
Sure, I'll do it, but I'm not buying it.
You're buying it that we're not. You're convinced that there won't be anything on the screen. You're not going to see anything.
Yep.
And what are you going to do if a presence shows up?
I'm still not jumping to a conclusion that it's a ghost.
What is it then?
I don't know, but I'm sure there's going to be I'm sure there's an explanation.
The explanation is that it's a ghost.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Who knows the least about the history of chairs?
Of chairs?
Yeah.
I would say, you know what? It's going to be me. Because you bought those chairs a couple months ago and you dived into it.
Yeah. So I bought
it's
those
100%
chairs,
me.
And the guy had zero. And you guys, again, when I thrift and I shop, I like to know the history of these inanimate objects that I'm purchasing.
That you're now connected to.
That I'm now connected to. And I bought a set of chairs from a man, and it was
like his grandparents or something.
No, he said in his church, he provides a service, and I think he does it for free. But anyone that's moving in Tucson, we have a lot of turnover of old people here. It's a very snowbird old people.
Like you said turnover?
Yeah, we do have a turnover of old people. That's a wild take, isn't it?
That's probably something we should say.
Well, we do. We have a high turnover of old people here. And so anytime that he's helping either a family deal with that or moving a couple maybe into a long-term care facility, he will go over, clean up, and pick take pictures of things and post them and sell them and then gives the money to the family. Like he'll transport them everything. I actually thought that was a really kind way to serve people in your church community. But he was also very clear that because he does this, he knows nothing about the history of some of these things or where they came from or anything. And so I spent hours researching different chair techniques and when like chairs were mass manufactured and wooden nails. And anyways, that's another podcast for another day. But I do know a lot about the history of chairs.
No one would listen to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, who can draw a frog that someone else would be able to recognize as a frog?
You.
Yeah.
I'm awful at drawing. Just terrible.
Who caused our elementary school teachers the most stress? I actually think you and I both
probably
were really good students.
I was a good student.
Yeah.
And I was really quiet. So I don't think you or I
never got into trouble in school.
Yeah. So
the trouble I caused, I never got caught for.
And it wasn't until later. Exactly.
I know sometime I do need to share that story. There's a podcast, I think I told you about it, that they share stupid criminal stories. Like it's Love, Laugh, Larky or something. And they share like just really dumb criminal stories, but they share it like a Dateline story. So like on the night of October 27th, Amanda starts her shift off at the, convenience store when she comes around a corner to find a man squatting down, smearing poo on the wall. And then that guy's obviously arrested. So they share these really ridiculous criminal stories, but like with a very serious tone. And part of their podcast is that you can share your own like dumb criminal stories of things you did or didn't do or never got caught for. I'm really tempted to send mine in about the night that I made the news and I had to tell my parents, don't go into the garage.
I think you might have said something about it on this podcast earlier.
Yes. Okay. All right. Last question. Which one of us has purchased more fridge magnets over our lifetime?
100% you.
I actually think it's you.
I've purchased 0
Every
fridge
time
magnets.
we go somewhere on a trip, you purchase a magnet.
I do not purchase magnets.
Yes, you do. After we go to Disneyland, you take a magnet home.
I don't do magnets.
Then where did all the magnets in our fridge come from?
I don't know, but
I didn't start that tradition. You started it.
No.
The F-Ben? Leavenworth was the first time it happened. You purchased a magnet in Leavenworth on our honeymoon, and we've done magnets ever since.
The churro was you. The castle?
That was our daughter.
Not me.
Because now this is carried on over to our children that whenever we go somewhere, they purchase a magnet.
It ain't me.
It ain't me either.
I don't care for magnets.
There's a mystery magnet shopper in our house.
I don't care for magnets.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. We will wrap it up there. We will never know who has purchased all of the magnets in the Turner household. But it's going to be Ben for sure. It's 100% Ben.
Sarah.
You guys, if we ever do any live shows or Ben is in Orlando with us at CrimeCon, everyone please bring him a magnet. I want him to leave with 700 magnets.
I won't leave. I'll just chuck them in the trash.
No, you won't.
Oh, I 100% would. I would not care.
From now on until forever,
if someone handed me
a birthday presents, he would like a magnet, please.
If someone handed me a magnet, I'd say, "Oh, thank you," and I just toss it in the trash right in front of them.
You guys, Ben puts on a front that he's a big meanie. He's not. There's no way in heck you would ever do that in front of somebody.
100%.
100% you would not.
100.
All right, everybody. Well, make sure to join Ben and I again next week where we recap another episode of
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.